Hi, everyone. My name is Kelly Pedersen. I'm the Executive Director of the 4-Point Arts Community, and I'm joined by Karen Lee Sobol. As by way of introduction, Karen is an artist, author, architect, and advocate. Karen Lee Sobol explores our spiritual and physical realms. In many media, her art celebrates nature and human nature. Her memoir, 12 Weeks, An Artist's Story of Cancer, Healing, and Hope, is illustrated with her art and helps save lives around the world. An alumna of Radcliffe College and the Harvard Graduate School of Design, Karen has exhibited at both. Abroad, her work has been shown in Amsterdam, Cracow, and Tbilisi. An affiliated artist with the School of the Museum of Fine Arts, Boston, Karen Lee expands her reach in the worlds of art and science. Her service includes the New England Aquarium, Save Venice Boston Chapter, Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, and the Center for Health and the Global Environment at Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health. Thank you for joining us, Karen.
My pleasure. First of all, my thanks to you, Kelly, to Eileen, to Kim, to Meredith Geisness, and to everyone who's here with us today. The 4 Points Arts community has been so generous in embracing artists way beyond the strict geographical area of Fort Point. And today, Open Studios Day, normally I and probably all of you would be outside going from studio to studio, trooping up and down stairs, experiencing so many wonderful spaces and environments and people. And I want to say how much I appreciate that you're all sitting in front of your computers to join me in my studio at 51 Wareham Street. What I love most about Open Studios is your responses to my work. I learned so much when people stand in front of what I make and feel it and tell me what they see, tell me what it means to them. So I would invite you please to speak up and let's have as much of a conversation as we can. I just want to start by saying two things about me, which are these. I swim, I meditate, and I love color. And with that, I'm going to turn the camera off for a moment while I move it, and then we'll look around the place.
While Karen is moving her camera, I'll remind folks that if you'd like to join the conversation, you can type a question or comment into the chat, or you can raise your hand and we can call on you to speak.
So I think what I'm just going to do is tour you through, and then we'll go from there. The painting, though, I will tell you a little bit about what you're seeing. The painting that you just saw behind me is called Synapse. It's sea, it's beach, it's the flora of the ocean, and it's the energy of it. Now we're kind of getting into my goddess series with a goddess above and an abstract painting that the ocean and the beach helped me make below. This is crazy. This is so much fun in an odd way. Another of the goddess series and an abstract ocean painting. Spanning that space is Seahorse. The goddesses continue. This is a small series since COVID-19 came along, part of the Masked series. And the final painting you see is part of Nobody's Nomads series. So with that, uh, I'm curious to know, Kelly and people who are with us, is there something that you would like to go back to and hear a little bit more about?
I, for one, am interested in your process and how you achieve these really silky, silvery effects that are coming through, particularly in your Goddess series.
So in that case, let's go back to the first one that I've made. And let me tell you a little bit more about the goddess of the coral reef. Where this painting began actually was with the sky. It began with this incredible funnel of white cloud that ran for at least 40 miles in a pure, clean blue sky as I was riding on Amtrak from Boston to New York sometime in the early winter of 2019. So I come back to the studio and I say, awesome, I'm going to paint like this beautiful sky. But to refer back to something Meredith Geisner said on Friday evening at the opening reception, I'm not a realistic painter. So I started with the rolling sky. And then I realized that what I wanted, which are, these sweeps of blue and white, that what was developing here was I wanted to express something about the peril our planet is in. And this generates the female figure. So my Goddess series is about procreation, protection, and threat. Often I'll take oil pastel and do a caricature of a figure, for example. So here is the goddess's head, her arm, which actually is in paint, not in oil pastel, breasts, her leg, her extended foot, her pointed foot. And the thing that's really fun with the oil pastel is that it begins to dissolve and become softer as wet paint goes on. I tend to paint pretty wet, which is why I often say I never know what the painting looks like until the paint dries. There are always surprises. So I don't think of myself as a patient painter. So I can't really say to you, oh, well, my process is step 1, 2, 3. My process is much more interactive. It's just really paying attention, really watching what's going on, and also feeling like I realize that there's an internal rhythm, a music almost, that keeps me moving as I paint. And that's what generates the rhythms in the painting, which could be, just kind of fluid, or they might be more like points of color. In addition to the acrylic paint, I love acrylic inks, and I also love some of the metallic paints, the silver, opalescent paints, and the gold. And also, I just want to say one more thing, not to take up all our time on one painting, but there's like feedback between the image and me, so that, for example, this goddess, this is not a really realistic face. This is a pretty freaked out face. She's trying to still continue protecting the reefs and the mammals and the fishes, the algae, everything that's living in the sea, but the stress is building. Her heart is almost like a lobster claw, maybe pumping a little too hard. And here is a marine mammal, a bird, a marine bird, also kind of feeling the stress. And I feel like it's through this visual, visceral language that we artists can help people really feel what the science and what the data are trying to tell us.
We have a comment from Meredith. I can really see the feminine energy in your work.
Well, thank you. I also hope it can be universal. But
Can you tell us more about the painting below the goddess painting you just told us about?
I would be happy to. So the painting below that is called Dune Noon. When I have the opportunity to be at the ocean, I like to take my canvas and soak it in the ocean. And then once we're leaving the ocean, the canvas and I, often it will pick up sand, it will pick up pebbles, it will pick up seaweed. It's a pleasure to be able to paint outside when I can. And again, the color gives me a great deal of feedback. It's not pre-planned. It's really intuitive. It's really about being present, watching what's developing. So the red, the hot colors to me indicate two things: noon, obviously, and also the increasingly hot temperatures in the waters. Sun, sand, green. The other thing I want to say, which I think annoys some people, but which honestly I've begun to accept as part of who I am, is this: I'm never able to leave space to stretch the painting. Wherever the edge of the canvas is, that's where the story seems to go.
So when you're painting, you're painting on unstretched canvas.
Yes.
That takes a bath in the ocean and comes back. So are you painting on wet canvas?
If it's at the ocean, yes. And if it's in the studio, most of the time, yes, because I'll spray the canvas and yeah, I mean, detail will go on dry, but I don't do a lot of dry detail. And that would always happen at the end.
How does the salt water affect the paint?
I have no idea. I think we're going to have to let conservators tell us that a few decades hence.
Well, effect-wise, when you're applying the paint, does anything different happen?
I think what happens is there's a little bit of a sparkle from the sand and a little bit of a sparkle from the salt. Does it feel different? It probably feels thicker, probably feels a little bit thicker. But it interacts beautifully with the paint in the same way that fresh water would.
Amazing. And do you plan to present these hanging the way you have them in your studio, or do you have a different idea?
Some this way, some not. For example, I think that the goddesses are horizontal. The abstracts, often I play, and in fact, sometimes I will sign the back of the canvas in two different directions. But I think that part of the vibrancy, part of the life of a piece can be that we can shift its orientation. That's a great question, by the way. Thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome. Can we see more of your goddess series?
We certainly can. This one is, do you want me to get closer? Maybe we can get a little closer. This is the one that's featured in some of the Fort Point publicity. She was inspired by St. Lucia, the incredible Twin Peaks, the Tetons, which are her breasts, the exquisite coves that kind of nuzzle in between those peaks, the fertility, the coral, the sea life. However, St. Lucia, like every island in the Caribbean, is tragically experiencing drought right now. Extreme drought, to the point where the livestock is dying and the plant life, the crops, are no longer able to survive. So People who have lived here their entire lives are now being told, drink water, keep drinking. When you're in the house, keep your windows shaded, try to keep the heat out, the solar heat gain out, and use chapstick. That's how searing the heat has become. So the goddess, again, when I come to paint her face, which I usually will do at the end, she's there, but she's kind of fading. It's almost like respiration is becoming expiration. And again, my goal here is not to be grim, but my goal is to just say, let's reconnect with the beauty. Let's reconnect with the vibrancy. Let's remember that we are animals too. And we are interdependent with every other animal and living item for clean air, clean water, and healthy food.
We have another question. This is from Karen Fabry, how has the pandemic affected your inspiration or your creative process and work?
It's such a great question. I would say that the initial reaction is just really emotional. In other words, I didn't sit down and say, okay, let's paint the pandemic now. I do want to back up, though, a little bit to answer this question by saying that Child's Gallery had installed an incredible show called Making Waves, all about ocean health. Making Waves was scheduled to open on March 14th. Well, by March 12th, we were beginning to understand that COVID was a horrible threat to us all. And on March 13th, the decision was made, we need to postpone this opening, which of course has had to happen. You can see that exhibition online. What I did was move my studio to my house, which I think many of us did. And instead of working at this scale, now I found myself working at this scale. Again, still in really strong color. But what would start to happen was I would be drawing germs, or I would be drawing the planet with a mask on it. In fact, I'm going to rotate the camera a little bit and show you more. Also, I drew with what was around. A lemon in my kitchen got moldy, and I thought, oh, this is really interesting. So I took it to my painting table and threw it down on the piece of paper, and suddenly I had a new a new painting ingredient, lemon mold. Hang on, and let me show you a couple of paintings from that era. We're not going to be really close to them. This one it's kind of abstract. It's a mask like you might see at Mardi Gras, or it's a mask like you might see at Halloween, very fanciful. This one is as well. This one is saying, can I kiss you? And this one is saying, no kissing. This one is more of the entire planet. Equator, lots and lots and lots of virus. And it's like the planet, for the health of us all, needs to be masked at the moment. And we will, I just really want to say, because this is very, very important, we will get through this. And so it's important that we remember we need to take excellent care of ourselves and of each other, and we need to be kind, because we will get through it.
Thank you. I think it's always nice for us to hear that, every once in a while. I have another question for you. Your goddesses and the paintings that are hanging below them, are they meant to be displayed together? Or is that just because you needed to present them for the talk?
That's because of how the wall space is here. They can, of course, be displayed together because the goddesses really, each one is rooted in a very specific, very unique geographical part of the planet. You're just seeing a couple of them here. So grouping them would be great, and also having them be individual. They hold their own. And the abstracts, of course, again, people can play.
Great. Can you tell us a little bit more about your application of paint to canvas? So do you use several like light color washes to achieve what we're seeing?
I'm going to come back around to answer that question. We'll go back to the coral reef goddess for that. She's a good example. The answer is I don't have a method. I really just kind of intuitively know what needs to happen next, which usually works out. But I don't have a method that will say begin with the light, build up, gradually, make your massing happen. What I do though is this. I work flat, and once the paint is dry enough, which is at least a 24-hour span, I'll hang paintings on the wall and just look. And I get so much wonderful feedback that way. Sometimes I get the feedback right away. The painting can come down, it goes back on the table, and the next iteration can be added. And sometimes it takes longer. Just to understand what the composition needs, where it's strong, where it might need more color, where I think there are plenty of birds and fishes swimming around, but you know what? I want you to be able to see them too. So that's where I have to come back and add strength and add more detail. I can tend, maybe because of my architectural training and the era in which I was trained, I can tend to be a real minimalist. But if my job is to communicate with you, I have to put enough on the canvas so that you see the thoughts and it's strong enough. So it's not formulaic, I guess I would say.
For someone who doesn't have a method, it's really consistent work.
I think it's the swimming and the meditation and the love of color.
Well, you can see the flow of swimming and meditation. I mean, both in your work. So it's beautiful. If anyone has any questions, I'll remind you that we can ask them through the chat or raise their hands. Karen, do you have anything else that you'd like to cover during your talk?
I guess really just to say how much, again, I know I did say this at the outset, but how much I appreciate Fort Point and all of you for being here today. And to see more of my work, of course, I have a website and also Child's Gallery, childsgallery.com.
That's great. Do you have an Instagram or other social media where you share your work as well?
I do. Yeah. I don't keep up with it as well as I should, but yes, I need to be a little more energetic about that.
We can probably find, we have a comment. Karen Lee is a goddess herself from Pat Grattan.
Well, whoever you are, thank you. That's tremendous positive reinforcement for me to keep the energy flowing and the paint moving.
Well, we can all certainly feel the energy when we see your beautiful pieces. And I appreciate you sharing your work with us today. Thank you so much.
Kelly, can I ask a question?
Yes, you can. Go ahead, Meredith.
Karen Lee, these are beautiful. It's a really strong group of work. How does the Child's Gallery show these work if they're not stretched or framed?
They are stretched, and they are either, some are stretched, some are framed for the gallery.
For the gallery, okay. So for storage purposes, you keep them off stretchers, not framed. Like the piece behind you.
Yes.
That would go onto stretchers when you're ready to show it?
Well, that's the choice is either stretchers or frame, because if, for example, the choice was to stretch, we lose an inch and a half.
Yeah.
So the composition becomes a little bit tighter. We lose a little bit, but what we gain is that on the edges of the now three-dimensional piece, you would see color. You see the piece continue.
Mm-hmm.
The other option is to float frame.
Yeah.
That there would be a mat, a frame, but you would still see the whole piece of canvas. And sometimes the gallery chooses one, sometimes the other.
Okay, so you're working with them. I just really like the edges, the rough edges.
So do I.
And I love that when you talked about the energy, and I can picture you painting and seeing that energy going off the canvas. And so that's why I was asking, because I'd hate to lose that.
Thank you.
In these pieces.
I feel the same way. Yeah.
And there seems to be like dark spots on top of the iridescent. Is that paint? Is that sand? What are we looking at? I can't get in close enough.
That's a terrific question, Meredith. What we're looking at is
those. Yep.
Yeah, it's acrylic ink, and this has become over the course of the last couple of years kind of a characteristic component of my work. It always goes on at the end, or almost at the end. Mm-hmm. And it's again that reminder, it's the color of life, it's the color of healthy blood, and it's also just a little heads up about how important it is to keep the planet healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they're beautiful.
Thank you very much. It's great to see your studio again too.
Oh, I love it. Also, you match colors. Did you pick your top to go with the talk? That's right. You are a goddess and you match. You work well.
Thank you. I decided to begin by sitting in front of Synapse, which is mainly blues, greens, and sand. And I thought, okay, I can't put on like a nice aqua colored dress. I'll just sit here.
Yeah. No, it worked. Very well done.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Karen Lee.
Also, I guess the last thing I would say is please feel free to be in touch with me. I'd love to continue the conversation, and